I have a question about the dynamics of the inception of the Inquisition. I'm not clear. What's the role of the Pope and the King? Because when Isabel was angry at Ferdinand, she would say, "Your sangria is not pure." I mean, yes, that's a true story. Isabel, the queen, when she was arguing with Ferdinand, used those words, "Your sangria is not pure." So I'm trying to understand, was this sort of a caste system created by the king in order to investigate sort of and gain power as opposed to the Pope? And what was the interaction of the Pope as a universal Catholic institution over the sort of earthly rulers?
The statutes of purity of blood has been introduced by Rome by request by the kings to Rome. That means they have the permission of the Pope, but in general, Rome make many criticisms about this, the way they are being applying in the Iberian society, in the case of Portugal, but also in the case of Spain, as you know, and it depends on
initiated by the king and approved by the Pope?
In the Portuguese case, they are introduced. It's not a general law. It's in the king introduced in the military orders, for instance.
Because that's very similar to the Communist Party commissars. No, they are using the same terminology.
A commissar is someone that has a commission to do a task. It's a general term. But it never was a global law inside the country. In Portugal and Spain is the same situation. It's not generalized, but an institution has statutes of purity of blood, other could not have, but the way they apply them is quite different. In the Portuguese military orders, it was it was the king that requests because want to make more important this distinction that the king is giving to someone when he gives an habit of the one military orders.
So in Spain it was also...
Excuse me, sir, excuse me. Sir, as a question,
we can
please.
speak at the end. Okay.
Just two questions. One for Antonio first. Is there competition and conflict about the new Christians taking these roles as agents of the Iberian monarchs? And what's the attitude in Rome towards? Is there any sort of contentious attitude from the papal curia about the fact that they're new Christians? And for Fernanda, I just wondered whether you could elaborate a little bit on why it's an uncontentious process in the Inquisition. That surprises me. Perhaps it shouldn't, but why is it not problematic for the inquisitors to destroy the books of Fintas?
Maybe I can ask. I think my questions are a bit related, and might be easier doing like this. I'd like to thank, first of all, both of you for those very instigating and interesting communications. And Antonio, you're opening, I know, for me at least, a huge field of thinking differently the question of the relations of new Christians in Rome, and thinking of all these new Christians working for the crown of Spain, and at the same time other people working against the new Christians, and how trying to elaborate in my head how they're working together, or at the same time at least, in the same place, one against the others, and that's why I think it has something to do with Anna just asked. And to Fernando Olival, I would also I'd like to ask. I kind of see it a little bit, but I want you to maybe make it more clearer. The link between the need of destruction of these lists of the Finta. And it's very interesting. I'm going to look for this one from the Fintados da Bahia to see who they were. And the question of the nomination of other familiares. I mean, the documents that were outside the court, the tribunal, and that they wanted to gather and destroy, and the information that were inside the courts. I think that information were a bit different, because most of the processos that the habilitações that stopped, it was just because they didn't go further. It was not that they were refused, so it was not clear that if the persons were new Christians or not. I would guess, and there are some other things regarding. First, as you said, the king must be informed of its application, but in fact, it's the Conselho Geral that signs for the king, right? So the king can ask for further information of what's happening there, but in fact, he's not really there every day to see what's going on. So they keep doing their own work. And regarding the importance of the king in the Conselho Geral, you said, of course, the brother of Marquês de Pombal was deputy of the Conselho Geral, and you said about, I forgot the name of the other one that was nominated directly to the Conselho Geral without being beforehand deputado and inquisitor. Just to have an idea, what was his career beforehand? Of course, the brother of Marquês de Pombal, we understand that they were very close, but the other one, do you think he really had an important role in this domestication of the Inquisition? Thank you.
Thank you. The first one is for Antonio. I really enjoyed your presentation, but I suspect it because you are my friend. And
not because it's
no, because we work a lot together about these things. No. But because we thought a lot of things, a lot of times about this subject, I was asked you a question. These agents in Rome were new Christian, but as we thought, I think, they are not acting as new Christian. I think, and if we do this different, they were a new Christian because genealogically they were new Christian, but sociologically and politically they are not acting as a new Christian. I think this is my point of view, because these people, as Portuguese agent, as acting at the same time as inquisitorial agent of the Portuguese Inquisition, and sometimes of the Spanish Inquisition with the Spanish action. And I have a question too to Fernanda. Bruno, I think the man who was nominated didn't live for the General Council was Antonio Matos de Noronha, he was an inquisitor, and in the past. Yeah, and I was thinking in your last conclusion. Can you put your last conclusion? Because I have a doubt. I'm not, especially in the 18th century, but I think the two last conclusions are not contradictory. So you can have a connection with the enlightenment without thinking. I think the two conclusions are a complement, not contradictory. Why don't you think this process didn't have any connection with the enlightenment, with the illustration? Why not? Because I can see a connection, and I can see a connection too with the reinforcement of the power of the state, I think.
I would like to give the speakers the opportunity to answer before they...
Ladies first. Regarding in relation with your question, yes, it was a very competitive world. Maybe with the exception of the, can you hear me? With the, no? Maybe it was a very competitive world, maybe with the exception of the Portuguese agency and the agency for the Spanish Netherlands, for the Low Countries, because they functioned usually there were exceptions, but usually they function like in a very localist way, with only with Portuguese people, only with people from Netherlands. But yes, the crown had always in the balance the problem was that they need the system because of the vital importance of this administration, the relations with this administration, but the system created a lot of problems. You have, for example, in Simancas, a lot of cases, of examples of the agent of Naples. I'm thinking now, the agent of Naples had troubles with the agent of Portugal and the ambassador, because the ambassador and every agent had an hour and a day, a certain hour and a certain day to be received by the Pope with a protocol, with etc., etc., and all of these could create problems. And there were a lot of projects in the court for the elimination of the system, or not the elimination, the unification in a unique agency, in the person of the agent of Spain and West Indies. But yes, it was a very competitive world, because it was a cursus honorum. So I'm not sure if I have understood your question, Bruno, or I have. Okay. So, but yes, Ana Isabel, I think that being New Christian was not the problem. The point that my point was they were New Christian. The crown knew that they were New Christians, and this was not a problem in this case.
Why the Inquisition destroy? Why to select the Inquisition? I think by the two reasons. It's one way it's an institution that the crown control at that time, because of the connection of the brother of the Sebastião José de Carvalho e Melo, Marquês de Pombal, but it's also one way to give importance to this task. It's not another. It could not be the Mesa da Consciência to do this. It has no capacity to collect in many places books of vintage. It's very strange. They must be closed with 3 keys, but everybody has copies. And the problem was also the genealogists that use to make references of these books in the books of genealogy. The idea, in some cases, they give information to the king and request a dispensation, as they do in the military orders. It's very curious, but I need to put more attention about some details, and this discussion is interesting. In this case, José Ricardo Pereira de Castro, he was in the Desembargo do Passo before, and if we analyze who votes and who votes in difficult process, he is there in the Inquisition after. He makes the most important information, because we have a database, and when we also make reference who is the inquisitor or the member of the Conselho Geral that participate in the decision. And it's easy to make a yes. All of them are canonists and so on, but this is normal for this kind of institution at that time. I think the most specific is the place where the tribunal, where was the court, where was José Ricardo Castro before coming. And it is important to note that the Inquisition is losing power over censorship at that time, because it is the same year, 1668, when was created Mesa Censoria. The Inquisition continues to have some influence in the censorship, but not in the same way that it has before. And it's important to connect the two situations to analyze what represent the Inquisition at that time. And it's important to note that the familiaturas, there are a big number of persons requesting familiaturas of the Inquisition at that time. That means people from different social origins, especially something I named groups intermédios, are very important group requesting familiaturas, not only at that time, but also from the end of from the beginning of familiaturas, and to control the purity of blood by this institution is very, very important. Maybe to have a global idea. Okay, we thought sometimes enlightenment is only ideas, and we forgot that sometimes it's very important to reinforce the crown power. It's part of the situation, but in the way they justify things in the laws, it's in general is more the power that is important than to help to create a social equilibrium, maybe. But it's curious that after 1773, the nuncio in Lisbon informed Rome that this new law, finishing with the purity of blood, has been published in Portugal. And the nuncio makes some comments very interesting, that it's a way to create social equilibrium. It's a way to finish with a war. It's a way to finish with barbarie. That could be a word, a specific word. But I think tomorrow we can discuss more about when Dreira analyzed this question, because we join 3 persons about the end of purity of law that could be very interesting in this conference. I think I finished.
Okay. In this round, I have Antonia, who also wanted to ask the question. Gentlemen. Just a second.
Well, I can speak with Fernanda every day in Lisbon, so I can.
Okay, I would like to ask Fernanda what motivated the sharp increase of application to become familiares at the middle of the 18th century, and what motivated the decrease after 1770. I would assume that after the abolishment of the blood purity laws, the new Christians would rush to become familiares, because they now can join the Inquisition, but they couldn't do it earlier. And if you can show us the graph of the applications according to the years, it will help to understand my question.
I feel there is a problem of chronology in the paper of your paper, Dias, because we don't understand. It seems something homogeneous, and I don't.
Excuse me, I can hear you.
It seems that it was always like this during all that period, but I feel that we must think about the context. For example, I don't know very well the case of Rome. I know the case of Venice. And I know that in the case of the Venice, the crown supports directly a new Christian family to become consuls of the Portuguese nation in Venice when Portugal became ruled also by the King of Spain. So, in the case of Venice, there was a Basque family representing the crown since the early 16th century, and suddenly in 1580, this Basque family became only representing the Spanish crown and the representing of the Portuguese country. It was a new Christian family with the support of the crown. I don't know if it happens also in Rome, if with what's the so-called Union Dynastica, the new Christians also try to have more power representing the Portuguese kingdom.
I just have a very short question following up on what Ana Isabel said in terms of Enlightenment thinking, and it's a question whether it's not just a matter of Enlightenment currents in Portugal, but also the public image of Portugal in Europe that is the pressure of public opinion outside Portugal, I would think would, yeah, okay.
Want to answer?
Thank you. Simply, I'll keep in mind your comment for the writing version of the paper, but yes, that's all.
I start by the last one. I agree with you. The person outside the image of Portugal is very. The Inquisition is something very a bad reference of Portugal. Lenda negra, as used to say as we used to classify in Iberian historiography, one of the marks of this bad imaging of the Iberian countries is by the Inquisition, and to solve this it's very important, but I think tomorrow we can discuss more about this point. Why people are attacked by the familiaturas, by the certificate it represents? Who was excluded in this list? Who are the persons excluded? Priests with new Christian origins. And why a priest needs this certificate? Sometimes it's not enough to be priest to have a certificate of purity of blood. The Inquisition is the best one in the Portuguese society. It's the best one against rumor. It is the familiatura of the Inquisition. Because in the military orders, in the Portuguese case, there are many dispensations given by the crown. As you can see, Manuel da Gama de Padua was a knight of the Order of Christ, and we receive a commentary that is something very particular. Okay. After priests in this list are persons linked to the militias, farmers, but in the case of farmers, they have problems of mulatto blood, sometimes because they have sons with a slave, and this represents a big problem. The problem is not the color of the skin, but the slave, the idea of slave. And after the end of the purity of blood, I have the statistics, and the break is like that. But this graph is not very good. Maybe I don't have another one best with me. It could be this one. Now, yes, this is year by year. Yes, it is the earthquake because the Lisbon Tribunal, where was the Conselho Geral and so on, is disorganized. 10% of the population of Lisbon died. It's too much. It represents a little bit of a break. But if we have this, I suppose that I have the image. It's not in my computing. If we have the statistic for, yes, we have. Yes, this is all 18th century. Okay, as you can see, it's climbing down significantly when the purity of law ends. This is 73. I suppose I finish.
Please.
Okay. I want to ask a question to Fernanda, but first I will just comment on this matter. I think the growth in the middle of the 18th century, it's a reflection of that year, that 3 or 4 years where there weren't almost any candidacy, so they're distributed in the next years. But and in fact, the value of of being a familiar was to have a certificate of purity of blood. So once it's finished, it makes no sense even for conversos to get that kind of certificate. That happens in the case of the knighthoods of the military orders, because this ceases to be investigated, the purity of blood ceases to be investigated in the military orders. And there are some new Christians who never presented their candidacy to the military orders and wait until the purity of blood is suppressed to get the knighthood of the military orders. Well, the question that I wanted to ask to Fernanda is, Fernanda is saying that actually Pombal took the Inquisition from the inside before changing things through the law. And what I would like to ask is that actually the law of 1769 is nothing. It's just a symbolic declaration that the court becomes a royal court, and it apparently is a promotion for the court because it gets entitled to be treated as majesty, but in fact it's the first step for it becoming under the control of the crown. But the question is, in these years between 1769 and 1774, when the new regime of the Inquisition, which really puts the Inquisition under the royal authority, was there a change in proceedings? Can you see a change in proceedings and in the procedure and the action of the Inquisition?
In this case, in the not analyzing punishment, in analyzing just the applications, yes, I think there are changes. There are many new persons that the process was uncompleted because they have bad origins, and it is decided at that moment, and they are proved. The only exception is if they have condemned in the accused by the Inquisition in the family. Judged by the Inquisition. But there are some cases of persons with the ancestry judged by the Inquisition that they are proved. And this case must be analyzed with more careful situations. And something very important I forgot to say is, if someone died and the family continues the processes, the family don't want to continue the processes because the family has no money and it's necessary to pay these background investigations, they could request to the Inquisition a certificate of purity in these years. And these certificates are really important. And in other cases, in Portuguese society, if someone has a middle brother or someone of their relatives that has some problems with the Inquisition by prepositions and so on, that means it's not Judaism. Sometimes the family requests in the end of the 17th century, during the 18th century, a certificate to the Inquisition, as the problem was not Judaism and the person is not a new Christian. That means the certificates are really important in Portuguese society. It really divides the Portuguese society more than usually we think.
Two brief comments, and I have to announce something concerning tomorrow, and First, to Antonio, I remember a rabbinic responsa related to Jajam Saul Levi Mortera and in the milieu of Felipe Montalto, in which they were aware of the significant numbers of conversos who were dealing with these things in the Roman Curia, and seeing the percentages of these people who, on the one hand, they could somehow to be in contact with the church, but eluding the laws of purity of blood, and the same time they are fulfilling a job who is at the same time semi-ecclesiastical, semi-political, but economical. They are kind of merchants, of diplomatic merchants for the Pope. The question, and not now, but is can we still imagine that there is some stereotype or a converso identity who is still related to them? And to Fernanda, very quickly, many of you remember very well the apocryphal story regarding the supposed dialogue between the General Inquisitor Pombal and the king, by which the final story is Pombal that is saying that if we look very well at our background, maybe all of us must wear a San Benito. But this has some importance because this could be an additional explanation for that, including the impact of Europe. And this is concerning exogamy. That is, if the society is so mixed with converso blood, but in very infinite way, then you can arrive to a kind of moment of, I will say, of exhaustion of the principle of the purity of blood. And then perhaps, besides the importance of enlightenment and of the image of Portugal in Europe, perhaps there is a mechanism that explodes by itself a little bit, perhaps.